Wait, so a banana nutted in this muffin? Normally I do 2 or 3 jumps into the chair just to make sure I get a good one, but my back hurts, so that's the one you're getting today. What is up, all you luscious Les Paul loving lesbians? Den here. I was sitting down the other day and I thought, you know, there's really not enough tier list videos on YouTube. So I'm gonna help alleviate that issue today. And I somehow found a tier list video that hasn't been made 5 times already within the guitar community. So today we're gonna be ranking famous Les Pauls. For those of you that don't know what those are Les Pauls that are famous. Glad I could help you out. These are the Les Pauls that legendary artists used to define music as we know it today. From beautiful blues solos to stinky metal riffs, these Les Pauls have inspired generations of players. Whether it be because of the famous artists who have played them, or because they just look so goddamn cool. So here's the tier list. I've got about 20 famous Les Pauls that we're gonna go through today. So normally a tier list is like S tier, A tier, B tier, that kind of caca. But we things do here a differently little. I'm having a stroke. We do things a little differently here over at Den BMX. So the tiers I came up with for today's video, the top spot is absolutely goated. These are for Les Pauls that are absolutely goated, the best of the best. No one's gonna disagree with me when I say that these are the greatest Les Pauls on planet Earth. One tier below that, we have iconic. These are for all the Les Pauls that are still iconic, but just a tier below being absolutely goated. Underneath that, we have pretty neat. This one is for Les Pauls that are awesome, but maybe not as iconic or absolutely goated as the ones above it. Then the tier below that is mid. I have 6 tiers, which kind of bugs me because I really hate the number 6. So there's not really any middle, but I feel like if something is going to be mid, it would be like the middle lower tier. The tier below that we have ugly, but in a cute way. This isn't really lower than mid. It's just kind of a random one. You know how like a pug is horrendous, but it's so ugly that you're just like, aw. That's what this tier is for. It's not necessarily better or worse than any of the other tiers. It's just for the goblins out there. And then the last tier is, of course, doo-doo poopy butt. I would be surprised if I actually put anything in this tier. I feel like I might get murdered by the Les Paul community if I actually do that, so we'll just wait and see what happens, I guess. All right, let's get knuckles deep into this, and we're gonna start with a little silly one. We're gonna start off with the Zack Wild Bullseye. And this is one of the first Les Pauls that I ever saw in my life. My first Les Paul was the Epiphone version of this guitar. I don't know, man, it just looks so goddamn cool. It's a pretty unique Les Paul too, because it's got a big old unfinished maple neck. Yeah, I totally didn't just finish filming this entire tier list and then remembered that I forgot to mention something very important about the Bullseye Les Paul Custom. He actually lost it. I think it got stolen or it was lost in a truck or something like that. He was missing his Bullseye for quite a long time, and someone ended up seeing it just in a pawn shop somewhere, and it ended up back in Zack Wild's hands. I think those stories where people lose a legendary guitar for literal years and then they somehow, by some miracle, get their hands back on it is so fucking cool. Like, you could make a movie about that, and I think people would dig it, even if they're not into guitars. It's such a cool, interesting thing that has happened multiple times. I would put this guitar in absolutely goated. But you see, the only bad thing about Zack Wild's signature guitars is he likes his neck shapes to have the same radius as Saturn. And while I absolutely love the way this guitar looks, there's a reason I still don't have my Epiphone Bullseye. So I think for the Zack Wild Bullseye, we are going to put it in the iconic tier, because it is an iconic guitar, but I can't put him in absolutely goated because I personally strongly dislike fat guitar necks. Up next we have Mr. Gibson Page. This is his number 1 and his number 2 1959 Les Paul standards. So here's a more recent picture of his number 1 1959 Les Paul, and to many people, this is like the 1959 Les Paul, which is kind of interesting because it's a pretty quirky 1959 Les Paul. Before Jimmy owned it, Joe Walsh owned it, and Joe Walsh had the neck sanded down to it to where it was like thinner than a 60s neck. Oh my god, it's so cool. This isn't the actual Jimmy Page number 2 Les Paul. It's a Gibson custom version that some poor sucker probably paid 20 grand for. But yeah, the thing about his number 2 1959 is that's the one he did all the weird quirky stuff to. So underneath the pick guard of his number 2, he's got a phase reverse switch and a series and parallel switch. However, I have no doubt in my mind that when that guy dies, these are going to become the most expensive guitars in the world. And that's why Mr. Jimmy Page and his 59s go into the absolutely goated tier. We got another big one. This one is a little quirky, but it's still just as important as all the others. We have Les Paul's Les Paul. For those of you that don't know, somehow, the Les Paul is actually a signature guitar. It's pretty funny when you think about that because Gibson has been doing signature guitar inception for decades at this point. So like the Zack Wild Bullseye is a signature guitar of a signature guitar. It's great. Nothing makes sense. I love these stupid instruments. Let's get a better look at this Oh man, the pick guard is really something else. The jack is like on the face of the guitar. That it is a crusty looking gold top, but it doesn't look like one of those moldy gold tops. And I mean, I love the look of a crusty gold top too, but I think we can all agree that this thing is ugly, but in a cute way. Don't act like that's not the perfect spot for it. Up next, we have Mr. Slashleton and a couple of his famous Les Pauls. Because for those of you that don't know, Slash is kind of the reason that Les Pauls even exist anymore. Yeah, back when Slash was coming up, Gibson wasn't doing too hot. They were getting dragged by their thong, actually. Everyone was all into Ibanez and like super strat guitars. That was the new wave. And the Les Paul had kind of fell off. But an up-and-coming youngster known as Slash, he got a guitar that looked like a 1959 Gibson Les Paul, but it was actually a replica of a Gibson Les Paul made by a lovely fellow named Chris Derrick, who I believe has since passed, so R.I.P. in peace. I don't know if you guys can tell, I didn't script this video and I feel like it's going awful. But anyway, this like copy of a Les Paul that Slash had, it became known as the Appetite for Destruction guitar, and it got everyone back into Les Pauls. A fake Les Paul ended up saving them, which is just blissfully ironic considering how litigious they are these days. And I think it is hilariously funny to put a fake Gibson Les Paul into the absolutely goated category for Gibson Les Pauls. We got one more Slash guitar, and that one is Jessica. So he played the Appetite for Destruction guitar for a little while, and then Gibson was like, hey, you saved our brand, you want some guitars? So instead of giving him like the cream of the crop they had, they gave him a factory second. And yeah, it was just a really cool Honeyburst Les Paul that he played for a little while. It's got all kinds of stories. He dropped a big old cigarette cherry on it right there. I believe this is the one where he broke the neck and then the headstock like came and hit him in the head. I'm assuming this guitar is named after a woman named Jessica, but who that woman is, I have no idea. And guess what? Neither does Slash. Jessica is gonna go into the iconic tier. Okay, we're getting into the weeds with this one. Up next, we have Greenie. Greenie is a 1959 Les Paul standard that was owned by Peter Green, Gary Moore, and is now currently owned by Kirk Hammett of Metallica. And for some reason, that drives people absolutely insane. So I don't think it's exactly a stretch to say that Greenie is the most famous 1959 Gibson Les Paul standard in existence right now. And then the big thing about Greenie, this top pickup was wired in kind of a silly way to where it's just naturally out of phase. It being upside down doesn't actually have anything to do with that. That's just kind of how someone put it in there one day. But I don't think Greenie is my personal favorite 59 Les Paul. I don't think she'd even be in the top 5 if I'm being real. So we are going to put Greenie into the pretty neat category. I'm just kidding. Please let my family go. We are going to put Greenie in iconic. Because even though she's not my personal favorite, Greenie is indeed an iconic guitar. Up next, we have the James Hetfield Iron Cross. He had this Norland era black Les Paul custom that he just heavily customized over the years, and it just got aged and beat up, and everyone calls it the Iron Cross because he nailed a big ol' ass iron cross right onto the face of it. LTD made a signature white version of this guitar, which is probably how it's more known these days. This was one of my favorite Les Paul customs when I was growing up. But yeah, the Gibson Iron Cross, owned by James Hetfield, I think it is a pretty neat guitar. Up next, we have, oh boy, the Ace Frehley Budokan. I like Ace Frehley. I think he's a goofy guy, but the Budokan is not for me. And I haven't made enough people mad so far, so we are going to put the Ace Frehley Budokan into the doo-doo poopy butt category. And before we get started, I just want to mention that all of this is just my subjective opinion. Don't go crazy. Don't let this ruin your day if I don't rank something you like as you would have. Up next, we have the other guy in Kiss, Paul Stanley. So there is actually a rather famous 1959 Les Paul that's called the Stanley Burst, and it's called that because it was owned by Paul Stanley, and I think it got refinished. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure this is the Stanley Burst guitar. It's got a real nice top. It's a nice iced tea finish. I couldn't really find much on the Stanley Burst. Like, this is one of the few pictures I could find on it. But what I did find was this 94 gold top to sunburst conversion Les Paul that is one of the most beautiful Les Pauls I've ever seen in my life. It's a 94 Gibson Les Paul. They got rid of the gold top and converted it to a sunburst Les Paul. Man, that top on that thing is crazy. The white PAF just, ooh, man. I'm stiff. Despite it being owned by a dork that doesn't understand anything past 6th grade biology, it's still a really damn good looking guitar. So we are going to put it in the pretty neat category. Oh boy, this is a good one. Up next, we have Randy Rhodes's white Les Paul Custom. This white Les Paul Custom is pretty much why anybody likes white Les Paul Customs. Here's one of Gibson's like reissue remakes, that beautiful aged white that's not even white anymore. It's a bit more of a butterscotch yellow color now. God damn, that thing looks so good. Yeah, one of the first videos I ever saw of someone playing guitar was the like Crazy Train live video where he's playing his white Les Paul Custom. Ever since then, I've been head over heels with white Les Paul Customs. You'll know that Randy Rhodes' white Les Paul Custom is obviously going to go into the goated category because Randy Rhodes and his white Les Paul Custom are absolutely goated. Up next, we have the Jeff Beck Oxblood Les Paul. They actually just came out with an overpriced Epiphone version of this guitar, so I remember back when I first got into playing guitar, I'd only been playing for like a year or two. I went to visit some family in Phoenix, and they had a really cool guitar center there. They had a room of just Gibson Les Pauls, and they had a bunch of really expensive ones behind glass. And the most expensive one they had was one of these Jeff Beck Oxblood Gibson reissues. It was like $10,000 to $15,000 or something like that. It was the most expensive guitar I'd ever seen at that point. I asked to play it. For some reason, they let me, and the very first thing I did was break a string on it. I thought I was gonna get shot on sight. I thought they were gonna gun me down like a dog. I was like 14, and I very guiltily walked out of the room, and I was like, I broke a string. And the guy was like, oh, that's fine, I'll swap it out real quick. So that's my relationship to the Jeff Beck Oxblood. So yeah, it's called the Oxblood because it got refinished, I'm pretty sure, and it's just like a really, really, really dark red. It just has a singular wraparound tailpiece because fuck intonation. All my homies hate intonation. So yeah, I think this one, I think the Jeff Beck Oxblood is going to go in the mid category. Now that is not me saying that Jeff Beck is mid. Every time I've watched a video on Jeff Beck, he absolutely blows my mind. But the Oxblood Les Paul, it's kind of mid. Moving on, we have ZZ Top and the Pearly Gates. Oh boy. It's just a 59 Les Paul that had a particularly flamey top, and I'm assuming it's one of the ones with good PAFs. There are some 59s that don't really sound that great. It's kind of hard to believe, but the famous ones are famous because they sound good. And yeah, the Pearly Gates is pretty cool. It is a little too red for my liking. People might get mad at me, but for me personally, I just think the Pearly Gates is pretty neat. It's not my favorite 1959. I can appreciate it, but it's not up there with these guys. Up next, we have Joseph Bonamasa, and I believe this one is the Snakebite. Yeah, the Snakebite is just another one of these famous 1959 Les Pauls. It's not the most famous, but it's just up there. It's one of the ones that Joe Bonamassa has consistently used for a real long time. Yeah, and then it's called the Snakebite because it used to have a Bigsby on it, and when they took the Bigsby off, it has the two holes for the Bigsby that are still just exposed. And one of my favorite monster trucks when I was growing up was Snakebite, so that's neat. Snakebite is a pretty neat guitar. But another one of his 59s that I really enjoy is Lazarus. Joseph and all of his cork-sniffing friends were having a dinner one day. One of them brought in just a husk of a Les Paul with all the parts, and they painted it red. It was like a homemade paint job. Joe made a rough approximation that it is a 1959 Les Paul. So he gave this guy like a shitload of money, and he sent it over to a luthier to get rid of the red and to refinish it. And the flame top that was hiding underneath all that red is one of the craziest tops on any 1959 Les Paul out there. Yeah, the flame top on Lazarus, just look at that, dude. It's crazy. That might be my most favorite flame top on any 59, 60 Les Paul out there. Gave it like just the perfect lemon honeyburst paint job. Oh my God. Like no one knew about this guitar until a couple of years ago, so I don't really think it can go in the absolutely goated category, but it definitely can go into the iconic category. Up next, we have Joe Perry's 1959 Tobacco Burst Les Paul Standard. So yeah, any Les Paul you see that has a tobacco burst finish is pretty much based off of this Les Paul. It is a very, very famous Les Paul because it was owned by Joe Perry of Aerosmith for a very long time, and then he had to sell it. And after various shenanigans, this guitar ended up being in the possession of Slash, and Slash owned it for quite a long time. But eventually Joe Perry found out that Slash owns his 59 Tobacco Burst. And after a couple years of him asking for it back, Slash gave it back to him for his birthday. Is that not just the cutest shit you've ever heard in your life? So I think Joe Perry, Slash, slashes 59 tobacco burst goes into the absolutely goated category. Up next we have Adam Jones and his Silver Burst Les Paul Customs. Like, there is his one Silver Burst that Gibson made all the signature guitars off of, but he's got quite a few Silver Bursts. So this is like one of the Gibson reissues, I'm pretty sure, but it's pretty much what his guitar looks like. This is like the Silver Burst for a lot of people. I really like how the Silver Burst turns into like this like gray green over time. It's a really cool look. It just kind of pisses me off that Gibson and Adam Jones absolutely obliterated the pricing of Silver Burst Les Paul Customs. Like, they are so horrendously overpriced now. I don't even know why. I think Adam Jones and his Silver Burst Les Pauls are gonna go into the pretty neat category. But that one's just like right there. Up next we have Jerry Cantrell and his red, I almost said white, and his wine red Les Paul Custom that he has aptly named Wino. I really like Alice in Chains. I need to play more of their riffs in my videos. It's just a really cool looking wine red Les Paul Custom. He took the bridge pickup cover off. It looks sick. It's a really cool looking guitar. I objectively don't like red as a color, but I think this guitar looks really freaking cool. The Wino Les Paul is pretty neat, but he has one more guitar that's not as famous as the Wino guitar. He also has this blue Les Paul Custom. That is some that's a good looking guitar right there. This blue Les Paul Custom is absolutely goated. We're adding it in just because it looks so damn good. Blue Les Paul Custom, absolutely goated. No questions asked. Up next, we have Buckethead and his signature baritone Les Pauls. Yeah, Buckethead is a very quirky, virtuosic kind of guitar player. He is really freaking good, and he can make some sounds that you've never heard out of a guitar. And he had Gibson make him these 27-inch baritone Les Paul Customs. I wish Gibson still had the nuts to make more baritones. I don't know why they're so scared of doing it now, especially now that baritones are being used more and more. I really think they should start making more baritones again. Yeah, this is kind of like a cult classic guitar, and I really like this guitar. I think it looks really cool. I don't really like the red kill switches. If they were just black or white, I think that'd look a lot cooler, but it's not my signature guitar, is it? However, despite all that, it's a baritone Les Paul, and that is objectively one of the coolest Les Pauls ever. I don't think they're known enough to be absolutely goated, but they definitely are a cult classic, and they are definitely iconic in their own way. We got two more, and I'm gonna try and wrap this up quick because I don't really have too much to say about these two. Eric Clapton's Black Les Paul Custom, the one that Gibson just made like a reissue of, this thing right here. It's a Black Beauty 3-pickup Les Paul Custom. They look fucking sick. I don't even think Eric Clapton actually played this guitar that much. I think he has other Les Pauls that he's more known for. I don't know, this is the one that Gibson made a ridiculous like $20,000 reissue of. Black 3-pickup Les Paul Customs are objectively one of the coolest Les Paul Customs out there. I don't think Eric Clapton's 3-pickup Black Les Paul Custom was really that well known, so I'm gonna put it in pretty neat. Black Les Paul Customs in general are pretty up here in this category. All right, this is the last one. This is Peter Frampton's Phoenix Les Paul. It's a 3-pickup Black Les Paul Custom, but the story of this thing is fucking crazy. This guitar survived a plane crash like this, and this is what the headstock looks like. It looks like it got in trouble with the mob, and when it went through that plane crash, they thought it was lost. He didn't see this guitar for a really long time. Somehow, I don't remember the actual story, but he ended up getting his hands on it again at some point, and that's just such a cool story. I think just because of the crazy ass story this guitar has and just how cool it looks now, I think Peter Frampton's Phoenix Les Paul Custom deserves to be in the absolutely goated category. Like, do you guys understand what I'm saying? Most Les Pauls can't survive a 3-foot drop. This guitar survived a plane crash. There are guitar players on this list that didn't survive plane crashes. Is saying that distasteful? Maybe it is. I didn't mean for it to be distasteful. I'm just trying to make a comparison. It's a crazy story. I think it's one of the craziest stories. I also forgot to mention, okay, I'm stupid. Alrighty, my friends, I think that is our definitive tier list for 20 of the most famous Gibson Les Pauls there are out there. Thank you guys so much for watching, especially if you made it this far. As always, go down there and leave a comment. I love to hear what you guys have to say. Share the video around, boink that like button right on its penis. And if you regularly watch my channel and you haven't already subscribed, then your Les Paul is never gonna be as famous as these Les Pauls. Your Les Paul's gonna be a loser. It's gonna be a dork. It's gonna be an ignoramus. Real quick, I wanna give a big shout out and a thank you to Cosmic Steez, A Horse Running, Solar Flare, Suna Verma, Rob Heath, Bad Joe Guitars, Brandon's Ballast on Corner, Bandage Knives, Jan Chocolate, Leagues Beneath, Scott Toman, Master Chief, and Big Tills. These honeys are my current channel members and their support really does mean a lot. If you wanna join them, get a shout out in my longer videos, get access to the members only videos, and just help support this channel in a bigger way, then you can go down there, click the join button. Tiers start as low as 3 schmeckles. There's also the super thanks button down there if you just want to give me some money, but I'm done being a tool.
Thank you all so much for watching. I will indeed see you curious critters in the next one. Goodbye now.